Good morning and welcome to our November Worksite Wellness Lunch and Learn. I'm Sierra Smith and I'm the Benefits and Wellness Communications Specialist for OSHR. Please note that we offer caption real-time services and American Sign Language interpretation for this event. For captioning in English, click the CC button at the bottom of your screen. Or if you'd like captioning in Spanish, click the link in the chat to use that option. For ASL interpretation, click the button that says Interpretation at the bottom of the screen, then select American Sign Language. Today's presentation is on the dietary approaches to stop hypertension, better known as the DASH diet. This method for managing what you eat focuses on blood pressure management and overall health. The DASH diet is ranked as the second healthiest diet according to US News and World Report. Today, our speaker, Katie Godin, will share some insight into this diet and the health benefits, which include managing your blood pressure, reducing bad cholesterol, and the many benefits associated with the portion control and sodium intake aspects of the DASH diet. Katie is a registered dietitian who has been practicing for over 16 years. She focuses on helping individuals improve their knowledge and relationship with food, meet their personal health goals. Lifestyle Medical Centers is an in-network nutrition counseling service. For those enrolled in the state health plan, virtual and in-person visits are covered at 100% for in-network providers. The state health plan has dietitians across the state. To find one near you, log into your state health plan portal, which is listed on this cover slide. As a reminder, everyone who registered for this event will receive a recording of today's presentation as well as the recipe. To find past Lunch and Learn recordings or see what's coming up, visit our website at oshr.nc.gov/wellness-webinars. During the presentation, you can submit questions through the Q&A and members of our NCFlex team will help answer them. Additionally, Katie saved a few minutes at the end of the presentation to conquer any questions we're unable to get to. Now let's welcome Katie and Lunch and Learn.
Thank you, Sierra. Hey, everybody. Hard to believe it is going to be Thanksgiving next week. And finally, the weather is getting a little cooler. I know I'm enjoying that. So hopefully you guys are excited to learn a little bit more about the DASH diet today. Maybe you've heard of this, maybe not. As Sierra mentioned, it is ranked second healthiest diet worldwide. Mediterranean is number one, and it is a very close second. It has very similar approaches to the Mediterranean diet, but we're going to talk about some of those subtle differences in regards to that today. All right. Sierra mentioned that you guys are in network with lots of different opportunities for seeking out nutritional and general, wellness counseling. We offer great programs here at Lifestyle Medical Centers, and with being in the practice for almost 7 years now, or a little over actually. I love that it's just such an individualized approach. But whatever you guys decide to do to tackle on changes with your health, I just suggest kind of thinking through what you feel like is best for you. And so, so let's kind of get started on some of the key discussion points here that we are going to hopefully you'll kind of leave the presentation having a better understanding. Just a general understanding of the purpose of the DASH diet. I'm hopeful that you guys will just have a little bit more basic knowledge of the DASH diet dietary components. And then just some simple ways to start to learn how to adopt some of these dietary habits and model those DASH diet recommendations. All right, so Sierra did mention that the DASH diet does stand for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension or High Blood Pressure. It was introduced in 1997. Its main purpose is to aid with the management of blood pressure, but also just general heart health, specifically by reducing LDL cholesterol, which is termed bad cholesterol. You guys know I don't love good, bad lingo, but it is just what they kind of emphasize as wanting to be a bit lower. when it comes to there's certain recommendations as far as what your LDL cholesterol should be. Hopefully you guys are doing some preventative well checks each year where this is checked, as well as blood pressure checked ever so often, so that you can kind of catch when some of these things are starting to maybe creep up, and you can implement, hopefully, some of these changes, ideally as a preventative side of things versus kind of once you've gotten to the point that you really need them. So we love to kind of preach, why not, start now. It's, as we mentioned, ranked ranked second healthiest diet according to the U.S. News and World Report. And also, like I mentioned, the Mediterranean diet is very similar. However, the DASH diet has a bigger emphasis on specifically portion control and specific serving sizes of things, which we're going to go into detail here later in the presentation. And it's going to be emphasizing a sodium cap and, kind of ways to help reduce your overall sodium intake to aid with that blood pressure management side of things. Let's go over this long list of benefits here for a second, because it is a laundry list of really great things. And so first, it does help with that, blood pressure management side of things, specifically through lower sodium intake, higher potassium intake. Overall, what we have going on is a bit more balance of electrolytes when we're having more fruits and vegetables and less salt. And this helps improve blood vessel function, which is responsible for overall blood pressure and how, our blood pressure is within our bodies. Heart health is a big part, as I mentioned as well, due to your reduction in LDL cholesterol or your management of a healthy LDL cholesterol. This is done just mainly through a lower saturated fat intake with the DASH diet. So not as much processed meats, lower fat dairy products, lots of healthy fats in the mix as well, which we'll talk about. There is a weight management side of things here when you're eating the DASH diet in general. Specifically, has more to do with an emphasis on whole foods within the diet, but also, as I talked about before, it has a really big emphasis on portion control and specifically reducing certain portions of things like sweets and sugary beverages and processed foods, which when we do that, we tend to see that we manage our weight and maintain a healthier weight a bit easier. There is an improved kidney function side of things, and that also has to do with lower sodium. So, anytime anyone has impaired kidney function, we're going to really start to pay attention to that first before they kind of hopefully not get further into that decline in kidney function where other things need to be considered. But overall, just reducing your sodium intake and processed foods can help with improved kidney function. We also have a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes, and there's a lot of fiber that is emphasized within the DASH diet. And I think that's its strong emphasis on fruits and vegetables and lots of fiber-rich grains and legumes, nuts and seeds. And so when we have a lot of fiber in the diet, we really do a better job of maintaining insulin sensitivity, which is just essentially your insulin hormone is being used more effectively to take blood glucose into your cells to be utilized for energy. So kind of a long-winded explanation there, but overall just better blood sugar control when we have more fiber and whole foods in the diet. Improved cholesterol levels, as I mentioned before, kind of back when we just talked about heart health. So just less saturated fat, more plant-based foods in general, lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of fiber is going to help with that cholesterol management. Reduced inflammation. So inflammation is a term you probably hear a lot. We all have it in our bodies, but when we have a lot of inflammation going on, we're more prone to the development of chronic disease. And so and other things, and some people are more sensitive to inflammation than others. So having a lot of healthy whole foods in the diet, less processed foods, more heart healthy fats in the diet is really good, specifically omega-3 fats, which you can get through a variety of sources. Salmon would be one, so good fatty fish, but you can also get that through plant-based sources like flax seeds and walnuts. So, it emphasizes these healthy fats a lot in the DASH diet. So a lot of times people find that that's aiding with a reduced inflammation in general within their body. Gut health, that's a big one, and again, fiber. I love to talk about fiber. Fiber has so many wonderful benefits, but having lots of different types of fruits and vegetables thrown in the mix on a daily basis is going to be one of the best things that you can do for your gut health, among other things. But that's something that I like to emphasize because I think it's a good place for people to start. And then bone health, simply because we are seeing a lot more calcium and magnesium within the DASH diet. So there's been a lot of uh, additional benefits within bone health when we're eating in this way. And mental health and cognitive function is always interesting when you kind of note how the way that we eat can specifically improve the way that we feel within our mood. And a lot of that has to do with blood sugar stabilization. So when our blood sugars dip and fall a lot, it can really affect our mood. It's not maybe the sole reason as to why this is kind of helping with mental health and cognitive function. However, it's a big part of it. So when we feel good from the foods that we eat, we typically do have this, better outlook, when we don't have a lot of pain or we don't have a lot of bloating or we don't have a lot of ABCD, right? We feel a little bit better. So, but specifically managing your blood sugars and not having so many, rises and falls can help you feel better within your mental health as well. So, with all of that said, who would benefit? Well, I hope that you recognize that pretty much anybody would benefit from this diet. You certainly do not have to wait until you have high blood pressure, have heart disease, type 2 diabetes. I would rather it be a preventative thing. So, that general health conscious goal of yours to adopt more of these styles of eating habits into your diet. However, if you are someone who has just been diagnosed with high blood pressure, or you do have type 2 diabetes and you're having a hard time managing it, adopting some of these DASH diet components is something that I definitely would recommend for you. You can see here just some general components of the DASH diet, and then I'm going to kind of section these out and go into a little bit more detail here in a second. So, essentially more fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lots of good, healthy, lean protein sources. Whether you're vegan, vegetarian, or you eat, you can adopt these habits, no problem. So I'm going to kind of talk about ways that you can do this diet with lots of different dietary considerations in mind. And then overall, we're wanting to limit things that have a lot of saturated fat, a lot of sodium. Processed meats are kind of the number one thing that I feel like we might overdo it as a whole. And so trying to reduce something like processed meats within the diet would be a good place to maybe start if you're eating a lot of that. Full fat dairy products, certainly a bigger culprit of saturated fat. So that's something that they are emphasizing you to limit. And then sweets, it's just is, I know it feels unfortunate. And this is a really hard time of year to kind of say, oh, I can't eat a lot of sweets. So I'm going to be realistic with my recommendations to you guys. And I am usually realistic with people when it comes to recommendations in general. However, they do want you to work on, less processed sugars, less added sugars, making more things at home. That's what I tell people with sweets, using different ingredients, trying different substitutions. And then, of course, reducing your sodium intake is a big component. So overall main goals that we're trying to do within the DASH diet is really increase foods that have a lot of potassium, calcium, magnesium, fiber, and protein, and emphasizing the reduction of foods that are high in sodium, saturated fat, and added sugars. Okay. So I kind of said this in a little, a little bit sprinkled in so far, but essentially we're reducing your sodium intake and increasing potassium, but then other electrolytes as well, like magnesium, for example, is a big part of this too. But it helps to balance those electrolytes, essentially improving blood vessel function. And what that's doing is just helping you have a more manageable and a healthier blood pressure outcome. All right, well, let's get into the dietary components. Of course, vegetables. So you're going to see here specific servings listed up at the top. And then what I've done is giving you an example of a serving size and then why that particular food is important within the DASH diet. And then I want to also emphasize, when it comes to some of this, we can't all sit down and tally up serving sizes every single day. It's a lot. And some people love to track and do love data and want to do that. And that's also fine. But it can be very micromanaging. So my point for you guys is not to leave here and feel like you have to go, from this session and then start tallying up fruits and vegetables, tallying up nuts and seeds, etc. But more so just learning. That's what I personally like to teach people, is just more so learning what a general approach is. I know you guys have heard me talk about plate method before. I can't emphasize that enough. It's one of the most simplest approaches to ensure that you're getting a wide variety of foods in your diet. And then maybe we're just kind of learning over time things that you're lacking, things we could be adding. So again, I don't want you to get too caught up in the extreme specifics here, but just bottom line, for example, one small change, which we'll get to later, is just a list of small changes that I thought would be helpful for you guys to start with. But it's ideal to just start to work on increasing your fruits and vegetable intake. If you feel like you're not eating any at lunch, let's add some, right? So that's the point. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. So the DASH diet, however, is recommending between 3 to 5 servings per day of vegetables. A serving size of a vegetable, in case you didn't know, is 1 cup raw, so a cup of salad greens, or a half a cup of some type of cooked vegetable, roasted, steamed, you name it, just cooked. And these specific types of foods, these veggies, these nutrients that they obtain, typically are rich sources of potassium, magnesium, and fiber, which are all very helpful with a lot of the things that I've mentioned so far as the benefits of the DASH diet, aiding with blood pressure management, and then just the laundry list of things that I mentioned earlier. With fruit, 4 to 5 servings per day. So you can lump this together, guys. Maybe you've heard we should be eating between 5 to 9 servings of fruits and veggies every single day. I'd kind of go along, with that. If you want to eat more veggies than fruit, go for it. I think that there is some wiggle room with all of this. But again, DASH diet recommendations have made veggies 3 to 5 and fruit 4 to 5 servings per day. I typically emphasize more fresh fruit than anything else. Frozen is a great second, backup, especially if you want to use them in smoothies. That's one of my favorite ways to add in a little extra fruits and get in some berries specifically. I love frozen berries. They're going to be a lot more affordable, stay fresh a lot longer, and great to add into smoothies, like I mentioned. Instead of dried fruits, they do include that as an option, but when we eat more dried fruit than fresh fruit, we're going to be adding a little bit more sugar and a little bit more concentrated calories as a result. So I usually will kind of lean more towards the fresh and frozen fruits for serving sizes there. Half a cup, where a small piece is serving of fresh. And then again, same as those veggies, lots of good electrolytes like potassium, magnesium, and fiber, especially if you're choosing fruits that you are leaving the skin on or have any seeds in them. You're going to be getting a little bit more fiber from those. When it comes to grains, you can see there's a heavy emphasis on that, 6 to 8 servings per day. Some of you may have lots of questions in regards to that recommendation. My, thing that I kind of emphasize is, why are we needing these? And it's for, good overall energy from those carbs and fiber. We can get fiber from lots of different things. So if you're grain-free, lots of options out there for you. You can obviously get grain-free crackers and lots of grain-free options when it comes to these whole foods that we want to be incorporating, pastas and things like that. I'm actually featuring Bonza pasta today, which is a chickpea pasta, completely grain-free. It's helpful to kind of understand that there, again, room for flexibility within all of these recommendations. I like to kind of look at the fine line here. They want to see more fiber. Again, low-fat dairy. So what if we're vegan? What if we're lactose intolerant, right? So we have some flexibility here. However, they are recommending between 2 to 3 servings per day. You can go for, things like almond milk, just to throw that out there for one example, which is dairy free and also has more calcium per serving than a glass of cow's milk. So again, their emphasis is on calcium and protein here, lean sources of protein. If you are lactose intolerant, but maybe you tolerate some things like Greek yogurt, I would emphasize that because it has more protein. And we could go down the rabbit hole here of what good Greek yogurt sources are, because there's lots of different ones out there. Just to kind of throw that, I would just mention that looking for total sugar, a little tip that I tell people with yogurt, if you are looking for, regular Greek yogurt, try to get more protein than carbs if you can, specifically total sugar. Okay. So, again, I feel like we could do an entire presentation just on how to pick out a Greek yogurt. But anyway, I really do think that, having some of these just lower fat, dairy-free options are going to be just as good. We just want to make sure that we're aiming for adequate protein and getting some good calcium sources in our diet. We can also get non-dairy sources of calcium in our diet. So things like tofu and kale, like I'm featuring today, chia seeds, broccoli, lots of plant-based foods accumulate, like if you're eating these throughout the day, that are going to be giving you calcium as well. Okay, so lean meat, poultry, fish, they do lump eggs within this recommendation as well. 3 to 6 servings per day. Again, protein and magnesium are emphasized here. So if you're plant-based, you do not eat meat, you do not eat fish, we can lean towards some of our plant-based sources of protein, and we can lean towards our plant-based sources of magnesium, which there are a lot. And so, however, 3 to 6 servings per day, pretty simple to get. When you look at that serving size example showing you 1 ounce of meat or fish is equal to 1 serving. Typically, we're eating, I would say between 5 and 6 ounces as most individuals, maybe a little less, of course, and it's individualized, but it's not necessarily hard to get in these servings. And these are things that we teach people also. We have meal plans. We kind of section it out for people. We space it throughout the day based on your energy needs. So that's something that, again, this can all be flexible and individualized. I want to just get across the main point here for you guys today. So nuts, seeds, legumes, you're looking at a weekly recommendation. So that's between 3 to 6 servings per week. I've featured just a couple pictures here of some really good ways of getting some of these legumes and nuts and seeds in. So a healthy trail mix is always nice. You can always click on that link and get these recipes so that you can try them at home. And then this is a great time of year for soups, and lentil soup is one of my absolute favorites. It's loaded with plant-based protein, fiber, and it's really delicious. So if you've never tried, I would certainly give it a go. Serving sizes would include about a quarter cup of nuts would be a serving, 2 tablespoons of some type of nut butter, and a half a cup of some type of legume bean. Again, 3 to 6 servings per week. So maybe we're kind of trying to add and sprinkle these in. I feel like these specific foods are things that I'm really working with people on adopting more into their diet. We don't eat enough nuts and seeds in my opinion, and some people, and obviously if you have a nut allergy, you can't. There's other ways of getting these good healthy fats and sources of protein and fiber. But legumes and beans just are fantastic for overall health, and I think that we should be eating more of them. So I love the emphasis on these specifically within the DASH diet. And then you have your fats and oils. So pretty simple to get to per day in when you look at the portion size there. 1 teaspoon is equal to a serving. So you would get that easily with just cooking some vegetables. So or drizzling a little for a salad dressing. They do have specific recommendations on total calories when it comes to how many calories are coming from fat. I'm not going to get into that today, specifics here, because that's completely individualized. But that would be something that we would talk about in sessions with individuals that are really wanting to kind of bump down those total saturated fat calories specifically, because healthy fats are so important. So I don't want people to be fearful of fat, but I think we need to understand what foods have saturated fat in them and how can we reduce how much of that we're eating. That would be the more important thing that I would want to talk through. And then, like I just mentioned, this emphasis on unsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. And polyunsaturated fats, you guys, would be those omega-3 fats. Less than 5 servings per week might seem really rigid and tough. And so again, flexible here, trying to work on the bigger picture. Always remember that when you guys are trying to, retain some of this information and think about how you can make these changes. Just remember, just little small changes towards a bigger plan is always going to be the best way to look at it. So if you're eating a lot of, jellies and jams and drinking a lot of calorie containing sweetened beverages, these are things that we can easily just start to reduce over time. That would be really helpful. They do emphasize with the DASH diet and sweets that are kind of lower in fat, just a general total fat. I've included a couple things here so that you can get an idea of maybe some healthy dessert options. They do really lean into more fruit for dessert. You can make some really yummy fruit dips and things like that to go along with fresh fruit. That's a fun thing to do over the holiday season is, cut up a bunch of fresh fruit, maybe even make it look kind of fun and holiday, like some strawberries and kiwi or green apple, and then have a really pretty dip in the middle. There's so many different ones out there. I can pass them along, but one of my favorites to kind of go towards is either a Greek yogurt based, or you can use avocado and cocoa powder unsweetened and make kind of a fun cocoa chocolate fruit dip. So, and then I have a sweet bread down there that's a zucchini bread that, again, lots of different recipes out there. I think making things yourself is going to be a really good transition than feeling like you can't have anything at all. I would just challenge you to make things homemade, less processed. I think that's always the way to go. And then sodium, which is something that, of course, we want to make sure we are paying attention to. I have given you some recommendations up at the top, just a milligrams range there per day. It's really going to be individualized as to, what end of this range you fall or want to fall towards. I would say if you are currently diagnosed with high blood pressure and you really want to work on managing it without medication, maybe you've not been put on medication yet, I would definitely lean towards that 1500. It is a lot harder to meet that, but it is definitely possible. And again, when you think about bigger picture here, it's just making small changes, right? So 2,300 milligrams would kind of be that upper end. So we can look at food labels for sure. I think that that's something that if you're not used to doing, you should check it out. You should look at your products, see how much sodium is in what you're eating. So when you look at a food label, just a quick run through, a reminder of how to do that. You want to look at the serving size. That label is representative of that serving size. So for this particular example, you see serving size is 1.5 cups. I don't remember exactly what this was, you guys. I'm sorry. But the point is that you know how to look at it. So the serving size is 1.5 cups. So there would be 430 milligrams per 1.5 cup of this particular item. So again, if you're following a 1500 milligram diet, then we're leaning closer to a third of your sodium intake for the day with this. So it does need to be, watched and looked at. However, there are some things that you can do to kind of get started with the general feel of lowering your sodium. So maybe choosing lower salt or no salt added canned items to start, or just in general. Salt-free spices and flavorings, which I'm going to be talking a lot about within this recipe that I'm going to make here in just a second. So avoiding adding salt to foods. So just taking the salt shaker away, which I know can seem a little be scary at times if it's something that you do a lot, but just reducing the amount of salt you're putting on your food, because most of the time we're eating enough within the packaged foods that we have. Choosing plain fresh or frozen vegetables, really opting for more fresh meats and fish versus, those processed packaged forms. And if you're out to eat, just looking for reduced sodium options. Typically, it would be under maybe a heart healthy section of that particular restaurant's menu. And then I will say that eating out, you are going to just naturally be exposed to more sodium no matter what. So if you're eating out a lot, it could just be a goal of reducing that and cooking more at home. Some ways to enhance food without salt. Herbs, spices are definitely a go-to, especially within this pasta recipe that I'm making today. Lots of different spices going on and flavor. Adding things like lemon is another really good way of jazzing up veggies and pasta dishes. So some type of acid like lemon lime vinegar. Nutritional yeast is used for supplement for a lot of people that are plant-based and not able to get 12 and protein. However, it has a cheese-like flavor to it. So it's just kind of like a little sprinkling you can use over food. And I like to put it on popcorn. So if you've never tried that, that's kind of a fun little side note. And then of course, garlic. Garlic on everything is so good. And maybe not everyone feels that, but it's a great way of adding a burst of flavor without adding that salt. Okay, so how can you introduce the DASH diet into your lifestyle? So look through these. I am going to challenge you guys to pick a couple here in a second, just to think to yourself of what you're going to do moving forward here after this presentation to adopt some of these changes into your diet, into your lifestyle. So small changes, okay? We're going to maybe reduce processed foods or switch to low sodium canned items. Maybe that's something that you don't pay attention to. That could be something that you start to look at. Maybe you recognize, like I mentioned at the beginning, that there is a certain time of your day that you're not getting enough fruits or vegetables. Maybe you're not getting a fruit or a vegetable at breakfast, and you want to start to work on that. That could be a good goal. Maybe you haven't switched to whole grains, or maybe you've been thinking about trying some of these alternative pastas like I'm going to do today, the Bonza pasta, the chickpea, lentil. There's a lot of different varieties out there. So maybe it's just experimenting with certain things to see how you like it. Maybe you're introducing more lean meats, or maybe you're trying more plant-based proteins to kind of get in more nuts and seeds and legumes and less saturated fat into your diet. Maybe you're considering dairy alternatives or higher protein options into your diet, like Greek yogurt. Focusing on portion control. Maybe that's something you just don't think about. So I usually emphasize smaller plates because it's kind of one of those quick strategies that you can implement without really doing much other than just changing your plate you're using. You can also use smaller utensils as well. And another option could be cooking more at home. So that would help to, again, reduce sodium, as I just mentioned. And always remember to stay flexible. That is my number one thing for people. You cannot aim for perfection. There is no such thing. I think it's just about taking some of these tips and trying them as you feel like you can. What do you have most control over? Start there. So like I said, I would love for you guys to pick 1 to 2 changes that you can start today, or maybe you're trying to work on implementing them over the next week throughout the holiday season. Do not wait until January, okay? You can do some of these things now. You do not have to wait, all right? I've included some references here for you guys if you're, into kind of looking at some of the research behind it and a little bit more of the specifics on your own. And thank you. Thank you for listening to me talk about the DASH diet today. But we're going to move into the cooking demonstration part of things. And then I will save some room at the end to answer any questions that you have. But as I mentioned, this particular recipe, which is a chickpea pasta with mushrooms and kale, it's very flavorful. I've made a couple additions, which I will share so that you guys, and then they will be shared with you so that you have, it's just a little bit of a twist. I like to read reviews of the recipes and then try them and see what I think. And I think that these were really good additional, flavorful additions to the recipe. So I wanted to put those in. So within this recipe, we are going to have Bonza pasta, which if you guys have never seen it, this is the box, bright kind of red orange. You can use other varieties of pasta. You don't have to use chickpea pasta. You can use whole wheat pasta. I would challenge you to use something that has a little bit more fiber to it. I think that was the point of this particular recipe, is that the chickpea pasta does have more fiber. We're going to be using a lot of kale, some mushrooms, and lots of spices. So I'm going to talk you through it. I have already made the pasta because that was a time saver, of course. So I have an entire box of pasta that is pre-cooked. So I'm going to put that to the side, and I'm going to add that to the recipe when it's time. All right, bear with me while I just adjust some things around here. Okay, so hopefully you can see my pan okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is heat up some oil. It does call for a 1/4 cup of olive oil, and you can use avocado oil, you can use, but I would just, I'm emphasizing an oil that is higher in unsaturated fats, which would be the olive oil. So I'm going to pour that in my pan. Here, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add garlic, and we're going to add some crushed red pepper. So I have 3 cloves of garlic. That was one thing that was emphasized, is more garlic. So only a clove more. I just did 3. It calls for 2. That's 1 more. And I'm going to do just a pinch of crushed red pepper, which I'm not going to use all of that. I'm just going to pinch a little bit off and put it in there. Feel free to add more crushed red pepper if you like spice. But all right, so I'm going to put my garlic in. and a pinch of that pepper. I'm going to stir this for about a minute, just until it starts to get flagrant, that garlic, okay? I'm just kind of working the olive oil around also, so that when I put my kale and my mushrooms in, it kind of helps to spread it out just a little bit to get across all of it. If you're not a kale lover, guys, I would just give it a shot. I think that this particular recipe is very versatile. One thing that I love about these dishes is that they're fast and they're versatile. So we love pasta in our house. I do not abstain from eating pasta. I love to experiment with different types and to throw in lots of different vegetables. I prefer a non-red sauce. That's just me. There's lots of ways to change it up. And so hopefully you get some inspiration from this today. But okay, we'll dip it back down so you can see. All right, starting to smell pretty good. All right. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to, let's see, we're adding in the kale, the mushrooms, and then the spices. So you guys, I have 8 cups of chopped kale. So I'm going to just add that directly to my pan. I have 8 ounces, which is about just one small container of cremini mushrooms, which is baby bella mushrooms. Those have been quartered, okay? So you're going to take the mushroom and just cut them into 4s. That's what I did. This is one slight twist. I added a teaspoon of Italian seasoning in addition to the thyme, and there's a little bit of salt. So I'm going to sprinkle that in. And guys, I'm just going to stir this up for maybe about 4 or 5 minutes so that the kale starts to wilt and gets cooked. The mushrooms start to get soft, and then we're going to dump our pasta in and add a couple additional things. I love the little kale. There we go. I also wanted to mention that I'm adding salmon to this tonight. I wanted to show you the products that I'm using. So I got this from Costco, and I'm not, lots of different places that you can purchase foods. I just got it from there. To buy frozen fish in bulk is a nice kind of money saver. So anyway, if you've not gotten these before, they're frozen, they're individually packaged. I love them. I take them out 2 or 3 at a time. I cook them up quickly for lunch. I add them to dishes like this. Again, if you do not eat fish, you don't like salmon, you can eat this particular recipe on its own and get lots of good protein just from the pasta dish because it has so much more protein in the chickpea pasta. All right, veggies are looking good. Smells really good. Hey guys, I'm liking the way that these vegetables are looking. I'm gonna go ahead and dump my pasta in. The recipe says to add a little bit of the reserved water if you want, just to kind of coat it a little bit if you feel like the pasta is looking a little dry. I probably did about a half a cup. So what I did at the beginning when I cooked the pasta is I took a cup of the water from the pasta, that it was, the water that it was boiling in, and I put it over to the side to kind of hydrate the dish right now. And I only used about a half of a cup. Okay. Some additions that I added that the recipe did not call for because I thought it would be tasty and pretty. A half a cup of sun-dried tomatoes. So I'm going to dump that in. And then I'll save my lemon for at the very end. So I'm going to kind of mix that in. See how much color that adds? It's really pretty. Okay, I'm going to plate this really quickly. As you guys see, that is a very, very quick weeknight dinner. This is something that we do quite a bit if we're feeling in a pinch. I'd like to have a bonza pasta on standby, some type of frozen protein if you want to add something else to it, and add loads of vegetables to it. Omit kale, add zucchini, squash, spinach. The sky's the limit here. You can add the obvious idea is more fiber. And okay, so I'm gonna plate it and then kind of do the finishing touches, okay? And then I'll answer some questions. For this, serving size was a cup and a half. If you want to reduce the serving size to account for additional protein, you could do that as well. But I'm gonna dish out around a cup or so of it. A little bit. Okay, I'm gonna show you what else I'm gonna do. So one thing to help with flavor is, like I mentioned, acid or zest lemon. Okay, so I'm going to zest a little bit of lemon over top, and then I'm going to do a little squeeze of it, and then I'm going to finish with just a pinch of some grated Parmesan cheese. All right, guys, there we go. Super simple. Lots of different flavors going on in here, but very simple at the same time. We've got 17 grams of protein in this dish with, I'm reminding myself of everything that's in this. So we have 17 grams of protein. We have 10 grams of fiber, 18 grams of almost all of that, except for 2 grams is unsaturated fats. These are things that we're wanting to see within the DASH diet, but just within, in general. And so, yeah, so hopefully you try something like this at home or get creative. Try a little your own version of something like this. Um, Questions?
Not really. I think you covered everything, or someone from the NC Flex team was able to answer it in the chat.
Wow. Okay. I
That's
was trying to save
good.
as much time as I could just in case, but we may end up, exiting a little earlier. Um, yeah, so I love, like I said, it's kind of nice when you have quick, simple dishes like this. Anything that you can prep ahead of time, guys. That's my biggest thing I like to do for myself, and it's the biggest thing that I like to encourage for my patients and for all of you is chop up some vegetables when you have a chance. Keep things tucked away. Pre-boil your pasta in the morning if you have 10 minutes of time. It will save you because when you put food together like this so fast, everything's measured. Maybe some things you don't need to pre-measure like I do, like the spices and such, but maybe pull them out of your spice, cabinet. These are things that can be really helpful for you to actually follow through with a meal versus say, I'm too tired to do that. So, well, good. Well, I hope you guys enjoy. So, any further questions?
Not really.
Okay. All
Everything
right.
you covered.
Great. Well, we can end a little earlier today, guys. I know everyone's busy at work, but I do appreciate you taking the time to sit in on these. So thank you. And I look forward to December and talking about holidays.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you all for joining. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.